Hello there. As a parent and a head of school and a Christian, it's important to me that children are being raised in faith. And so I try to provide tools to parents so that they're able to work on this with their children. Last night, I became acutely aware of what's going on in the music industry. And I fear that a lot of parents are not aware of what's going on. I fear that they don't know what their children are listening to, what videos their children are watching, and that things are going into their children's minds that they are unaware of. So I wanted to provide tools for you as parents to be able to help your children make wise choices so that this does not go on and that we have children who are learning to act like Jesus would. This reminds me of a passage in Philippians 4, verse 8, which says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things." This morning, as I led chapel for middle schoolers all the way down to preschoolers, we talked about a few things. And I alluded to the VMAs that were on last night, the Video Music Awards. Of course, the middle schoolers are aware. Several of them watched it. The preschoolers don't have any idea what it is, so I didn't even mention the show to them. But we instead talked about what they hear and what they get to see, which is more like, backyardigans and things like that. But the older kids are very aware, and they can help educate you as parents so that you're able to know what your children are listening to. So I asked them questions like, where do you see videos? Because when I was growing up, it was MTV or VH1. The kinds of things they told me were they go to YouTube and they listen to videos. And I said, well, how do you know when a new video came out? How do you get to listen to it or to watch it? And they said, well, we subscribe to different things, and that's how we know. Or their friends tell them. I said, are your parents aware of what you listen to and what you see? And some said yes, some said no. And then I asked this question, and you should have seen the looks on some of the faces. I said, if I was to borrow your phone and plug it in and show it on the screens in our chapel room, or if I was to borrow your phone and plug it in so that I could show it in the worship service, would you be okay with all the songs that are listened to? And the questions on their faces and the looks on their faces answered right away. The answer was no. So I want to make sure that you as parents are aware of what's going on and how we can work on those things. The scripture tells us to listen to things and to do things and to think of things that are pure and right and admirable and excellent and all of those things. And so I think that's a good measure of why we listen to something or why we don't. If I'm listening to something, what happens is our brain stores it as a memory. If I watch something, the same kind of thing happens. In fact, our brain stores so many memories that we're not even able to access all of them at some points, but we still have them in there. I told the children that in the middle of the night, sometimes I get up to do something and go back to bed, and I realize there are songs in my head. It might have not been a song I've listened to recently, might have been one I just heard at the gym, but those songs stay in our heads. And what happens is we can become desensitized to things that we might have first thought were bad, and then we realize they're not so bad, and then eventually they become part of our what we do and what we agree with and what we okay. You can see this in society like crazy, through commercials all the way to music videos, to TV shows, to movies. You can see how things that once were not okay have become okay. And in the Christian lifestyle, and as we help raise our children in faith, it's so important that we stay aware of what's going on, that we live in the world, but we don't act like the world. So we want to have shelters on our children. We want to equip them to make wise choices. So let me give you a few tools to help you do this. First of all, you should have constant access to what your children are doing. You bought them the cell phone, most likely. You pay the bill, most likely. Or you bought the tablet, or you give them the computer, and you provide the Wi-Fi and all the things that they do. So it's important, I believe, that you are aware of those things and that you have constant access. That means until they're 18 or out of the house or whatever rule you decide, you should have access to passwords. You should have full capacity to be able to see what's going on in their text messages and things like that. After all, you are the parent. You are the one paying the bills, and you are the one that is there to protect them and help them make wise choices. Remember that children are often plugged in. What that means is you see them with headphones in, or you see them on their phones, and it happens very often. It's becoming more and more regular, not just for children, but for adults, to be on phones regularly. So keep that in mind as your children are when they're on their phones, make sure you know what they're doing. It might mean that you kind of play along with them and say, oh, let me listen to that song, and you pick it up and listen. It doesn't have to be as a you look down upon them kind of thing. It's just a thing of, let me see what's going on. I want to be aware of what you're listening to, and it might even be something that I like. Playlists. Your children have playlists, whether it's on an MP3 player, on an iPod, on a tablet, on a phone, whatever it is, they're listening to music. And so you want to look at those songs. And what if it's a song you don't recognize? Well, I suggest you look it up. You can easily go on the internet and type in the name of the song and look up lyrics if it's too difficult to understand all the words. You might want to type it up and a video might pop up and you just might watch the video. You want to be aware of what your children are listening to and watching. You also want to realize that some of the things that are stated in songs or in videos or in movies, your children may not know fully what they mean. This happens with my children sometimes. They're only 10 almost and 7. And sometimes they'll be singing a song and I'll say, do you know what that means? And they go, no, not really. And so I explain it to them. It's not always a bad thing. It just means that they don't have as much vocabulary as I do. They don't have as many life experiences as I do. So it could be that the child is just listening to a song that is popular without knowing the meaning. And you can correct that understanding, and then the child may make wiser choices about song choices. Remember, too, that you can become aware. Don't be afraid of technology. In fact, I have the students teach me things. I ask them, what are you using to text? What kinds of apps are you using? All of that, and get them to show you. Just pretend that you're old, uneducated mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, and get them to teach you so that you can become aware of what's going on. And that way you kind of win some cool points with them, and you also can check things out a little bit better. For things like songs, you want to be aware of what's going on. You can easily listen to the radio and see those things, but again, it becomes part of your psyche. It becomes part of what you hear, so you don't want to constantly fill your mind with things when you're trying to research for your children. One way to look things up might be to do the top 100 or the top 20 or do the hot 100. Look those up and see the songs. You can often listen to songs, look at lyrics, and watch videos. So pay attention to all of those things, and in this way you can help your child to think on things that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. You can do the same, and you can do this together, and by doing this, wise choices can be made. Children can be turned into people who make the wise choices in the future, and into Christians who are not ashamed to show what their playlist has, because they're listening to things and watching things that are pleasing to God, pleasing to themselves, and will help them grow in faith.